In your previous lesson, you understood what is sample proportion and population proportion. You also understood how it deals with the central limit theorem. In your previous lesson, you also have learned how to test hypotheses involving means and averages. In this one, you will learn how to conduct tests involving count data, percentages, or population proportion. Inferences involving proportions are made in the context of probability success, denoted by P, or failure, denoted by Q, for a binomial distribution. When testing about a proportion, a percentage, or a probability, there are some assumptions to be considered. Once these assumptions met, then the Z statistics for proportions can be applied. Introducing our new topic, computing test statistic value involving population proportion.
The standard deviation of a population is not used in a z-test because a z-test is used for comparing the population mean to the observed sample mean. However, the population standard deviation is used in calculating the sample size needed when designing a sample test in order to estimate population proportions. The population standard deviation is used to determine the sample size needed to get a certain statistical confidence in the accuracy. The population standard deviation is not used in the test statistic of the z-test because the z-test is solely concerned with comparing the sample mean and the population mean.
Before we have an example, please be reminded of the following. The test statistic to be used in testing hypotheses involving population proportion is called C-com, or the C-computed value. The formula to find the value of C-value for population proportion is C-com equals sample proportion minus population proportion over the square root of population proportion times 1 minus P, or the population proportion, divided by N, or the sample size. The symbol for the computed C-value is C-com. This symbol represents sample proportion. The hypothesized value of the population proportion is denoted by P. The sample size, or the number of observation in the sample, is symbolized by N. To be able to find Q, subtract P from 1, or simply 1 minus P. If P is equal to 0.56, then Q is equal to 0.44. The central limit theorem, or CLT, can be used when the sample is sufficiently large enough. Sample is large enough if it satisfies the condition that NP and NQ is greater than or equal to 5. And now let us have this example. For us to get the C-com value, we need to follow the step 1, or to determine the following: the population proportion, the sample size, and the sample proportion. But fortunately, the given was already present. And now, let's proceed with the step number 2. In step number 2, we need to follow the formula or substitute the given data. For C-com is equal to sample proportion minus population proportion over the square root of population proportion times 1 minus population proportion divided by N, or the sample size. And now let's proceed to substituting the given using the formula. Sample proportion minus population proportion, which is 0.45 minus 0.42. And next is the population proportion times 1 minus population proportion divided by N. P, or the population proportion, is equal to 0.42 times 1 minus 58 divided by 150. Now let us subtract 0.45 minus 0.42 is equal to 0.03, and 0.42 times 1 minus 58 is equal to 0.2436, and bring down 150. The next step is 0.03, or copy 0.03 and divided by 0.2436 by 150, and the answer is 0.001624, and it will become 0.03 divided by 0.0403, or the CCOM value is equal to 0.7444.
The next example is, a politician claims that he will receive 60% of the votes. In the upcoming election, in a random sample of 500 voters, there are 175 who will surely vote for him. So, the population proportion is 60%. And then i-convert po natin siya sa decimal point. Then the value of Q is 1 minus P, or the population proportion. And isa-substitute natin yung population proportion sa 60%. And then, yung sagot po nun ay magiging 0.40 or 0.4. The value of N is 500. The value of X is 175. And to compute the sample proportion, we need to use this formula. Sample proportion is equals to X over N, and then it is equivalent to 175 over 500. So pag dinivide natin siya, ang sagot po ay 0.35. And using this formula, we're going to convert this. Sample proportion will be 0.35, and then the population proportion will be 0.60, or the 60%, over 0.60 times 0.40 over 500. So magiging sagot po natin dyan ay negative 11.41.